Let's jump into a new Reddit story. Our title today is I'm the Other Woman in an Older Man's Marriage. Buckle up and get ready for an amazing story. Hi, two hot takes. I'm pretty sure I already know what I need to do. I'm writing this so I can get all my feelings out about the situation and maybe for some reassurance from this community. So, to begin, I, 27F, am a bartender in a vacation town. A few weeks ago, I had a customer come in alone who was pretty shy at first. He was older than me, I would later find out he was in his 40s, and I thought he was really handsome. I chat up all my customers, but eventually it slowed down to a point where he was the only one in the bar for a bit, so we got talking and hit it off pretty fast. He explained he was in the area on a work trip, and while I don't want to give specifics that would identify him, I found his profession to be really endearing, as he told me he works with disabled children. We got to know each other throughout my shift, and he gave me his number before he left for the night. I texted him the following morning, and we got to chatting pretty regularly. He came in again during my next shift, and afterwards texted me to ask if I'd like to go grab drinks somewhere. Though I wanted to, I had a flight for a wedding the next morning, and I needed to pack after work, so I declined. A day or two after I returned from the wedding, he let me know he was back in the area for work and asked again if I'd like to meet up for drinks. This time I said yes, and after I got out of work one night, I met up with him. Our texting up until this point had been vaguely flirty, but neither of us had admitted outright yet that we were attracted to each other, so whether this was a date or not was unknown. I've also never been in a situation like this where I was interested in someone 15+ years older than me. At some point during our time together, I asked him if he was divorced, since it was hard for me to believe that he'd never been married before at his age, looking the way he did. He told me yes, he'd been married and divorced before, to a woman he'd been with for over a decade. He made no mention of being with anyone else currently, or being in any sort of open relationship. Throughout our time together, we got more flirty, and eventually I admitted that I hoped this was a date, and that I was attracted to him. He let me know the feeling was mutual, and at the end of the date, I asked to kiss him, to which he said yes. We kissed, and he asked if I'd come back to his hotel room with him. Because I had class the next morning, I politely declined, even though I wanted to say yes. We ended up going our separate ways, and ever since that night have been texting almost every day. Our conversations got progressively more suggestive, and though it didn't turn into full sexting, it got pretty close. I was becoming more and more interested in him and really looking forward to the next time he'd be in my town so I could finally take him up on his offer to join him at his hotel. I noticed that while he really seemed to enjoy texting me, he didn't ask me many questions about myself like I asked questions about him. He told me a little about his life and his dogs, and that the next time he'd be in my town, he'd be bringing them with him. Out of curiosity, I asked who watched his dogs while he was on his work trips. He said friends watched them. I mentioned that maybe I could come visit him in his town at some point, since it wasn't too far away. That way he wouldn't have to drive to see me or arrange for his dogs to be taken care of while he was gone. His exact response? We could certainly work on that. That's when I got the gut feeling that wouldn't go away. It literally kept me awake until I pulled out my phone and got to investigating. I didn't know his last name, but I knew his first and where he worked, so I Googled that. I found him pretty quickly, and once I learned his last name, I looked him up on Facebook. I found his profile almost immediately, along with, you guessed it, his wife's. I sat up in my bed and just stared for a few minutes. The pictures from their wedding were posted just a few days over a year ago, meaning he was texting me about all the places he wanted to kiss me during their first anniversary. There's a lot I have to be grateful for here. I never slept with him, and I found out who he really was after only a few weeks. Based on what he told me about his job, his childhood, and his love of dogs, I truly thought he was a sweet, honest guy. Usually, I'm very good at picking up when people are lying, as I've been gaslit and manipulated in romantic relationships before. I know this is how every Reddit post of this nature goes, but with him, I really believed everything he said. It was only that one slip-up over text that gave him away. Now, I have his wife's Facebook account. I know I need to tell her. I was never looking for exclusivity with this man, as I honestly don't have the time for it, but I refuse to be the other woman. His wife deserves to know what's been going on. I know if I was her, I'd want to know. I've already started screenshotting my conversations with him for proof. I guess I'm posting on Reddit right now because I need assistance with the execution of it all. I really am not a malicious person, and if I feel any anger at all, it's on his wife's behalf. I don't want to destroy his life, mostly because that would probably just end up hurting her too. So Reddit, what's the best way to tell her that her husband has been stepping out on her with me? Let's review some relevant comments from our readers. OP. Hi, I know I worded that weird, but it's not AI. Just a few days over a year ago, as in it's only been a little over a year they got married, and we were talking during what would have been their anniversary. Commenter 1. She definitely deserves to know that her husband is picking up women in bars. Just tell her, I think you should know that your husband is not being faithful. Then send her the screenshots if the texts and a brief explanation of how you met, how he invited you on dates and to his hotel room. Update me. Commenter 2. Never protect the cheater. His wife deserves to know. Send her receipts too. You both deserve better. Commenter 3. Yes, you should contact the wife. Tell her before you tell him so that he can't block you on her account. Send the screenshots and give her the option to decide how she wants to move forward. Don't tell him you told her, just block him. He's definitely not in an open relationship, because if you're ethically non-monogamous, you'll tell your other partner. Update, October 19th, 2025, 3 days later. Hi again. A few days ago, I posted asking for advice on how to tell an older man's wife that he was trying to cheat on her with me. Since then, I received a lot of feedback, which I'm grateful for. Before I get into what I chose to do, I just wanted to clarify a few things. A lot of people took issue with the fact that I didn't know his last name after talking with him for a few weeks, and others thought I wanted to steal him from his wife. I guess I didn't explain well enough before, but I was never looking for an exclusive relationship with this man. School and work are my top priorities right now, and because of that, I simply don't have the time or emotional energy for a committed relationship. When I met him, all I was hoping for was something casual, especially since he didn't even live in the area. He could have been hooking up with other women while seeing me, and that truly wouldn't have bothered me, as long as he was being honest about it and wearing protection. I didn't think to ask him his last name before the 3-week mark because I really just hadn't made an emotional investment, but you all are right. If I'm going to get involved with someone romantically/sexually in any capacity, I should learn their last name much sooner, at least before I go out with them. One person also said to avoid tourists and people on business trips from here on out, and I agree. Even in the casual sense, it's gonna get messy. Like I said, if he'd been seeing other women, it would have been fine with me. Some of you said he might be in an open relationship, which I touched on in my first post. I don't think this is true because the point of an open relationship is that you're open about it with both your partner and the other people you're seeing. He never mentioned being in one or having a wife at all, so even if he was, he still lied to me. So for the actual update, I told her. The question in my last post wasn't whether to tell her or not, it was how. Though I lost sleep over this the last few days. I spoke with some of my close girlfriends and they all said they'd want to know if they were the wife in this scenario. I decided to message the wife when he said he'd be at a doctor's appointment. I thought reaching out to her while she's alone and has time to process before seeing him would be best. I essentially explained the situation just like in my last post, with some extra details I left out here for anonymity's sake, so she'd know I wasn't lying. I apologized a lot, sent her screenshots of our conversations, and asked her that she not tell him that I gave her this information. If she went through his phone on her own, like I suggested she should do, then she'd be able to see the proof for herself and hopefully she'd decide to just leave me out of it for my safety. I told her I'd leave our chat open for 24 hours if she wanted to talk or request more screenshots, and then I'd block her. At this point, I had already blocked the husband's number and his Facebook account too, just in case, even though we weren't friends. So 24 hours have passed and no response. I'm not sure if Facebook allows you to see read receipts for messages if you aren't friends, but I know the message was delivered. She has not responded, and so I've gone ahead and blocked her. Before I found out about his deception, the husband mentioned that he'd be in my town this week, and he knows which days I work. Hopefully this is the end of the story and I never see either of them again. But if he decides to show up at my bar, then I will update if I'm still alive. Thank you all again for your feedback. P.S. To the guy who messaged me suggesting I could be the other woman in his marriage too, you're wild for that. Let's review some comments from OP and our readers regarding the update. OP clarifies on the older man's posting on Facebook regarding the doctor's appointment. No, he didn't put on Facebook that he'd be at a doctor's appointment. He told me that he'd be there prior to me finding out he had already wife, because we were talking about the next time he'd be visiting my town. Commenter: if you messengered her and you're not friends, she'll only see it if she sees there's a message request. As for read receipts, if you looked at your message sent and a dot with her profile pic appears at the right bottom, then she read it. I'm hoping you have some kind of support at the bar you work at should he come in and be angry. I'm sure you do, but definitely have a buddy with you when you leave if he doesn't appear for the time he's supposed to be around. Hope you like this story. Like and subscribe to keep receiving the best stories in all Reddit.